needs to be threatened, not the status quo, not anybody. If the status quo sees their worth of their currency going up, you understand, then they would quickly see that they've got, logically speaking, nothing to be threatened by, okay? So even though you say, well, my rent just, I'm only able to charge half as much rent. Well, guess what? That's worth twice as much. Your currency is worth twice as much. So you understand, nobody needs to be threatened. And anybody in other parts of the country was hoping to immigrate here. Look, Donald Trump, I don't think he's going to get draconian. I don't think it would serve him well. The Chamber of Communists would be up in arms because they know the more the merrier. Bring them all in. Bring the whole planet into America. Sure. It's good for business, right? So understand how this thing works. They got their own version of supply and demand, right? Which they want to incorporate that along with the price fixing anyhow, and the fascism and the collusion and the market manipulation. So why not? A little icing on the cake. So understand what we're looking at here. So you get it, how all these people, all these different special interest groups, okay, would be hurt. Okay, now let's look at the debt industrial complex. Okay, 25% of Americans, I looked on this statistic, is probably about 10 years old now, but at that time about 25% of Americans were employed in some capacity in the financial services industry. Okay, so if there was no poverty and nobody needing to get loans, no need to extend credit, okay, because we were doing grants, okay, to finally end a problem, to permanently lower your taxes, so your tax dollars increased in worth. So, wow, your taxes got cut in half, okay, that's beautiful. That means the worth of your tax dollars doubled. You see how this works? And on and on and on. So nobody needs to be afraid. Nobody needs to be worried about being out. So we got to dramatically cut the work week because there's just not enough work to satisfy people. There's not enough creative people out there that can say, hey, you want a job? You want to go to work? You want to, I've never been an employer. So you know what? I've been self-employed. I've been an entrepreneur. But, it's a big deal. To be an employer is a big step. It's a big responsibility. A lot of legal hurdles you got to jump over, and a lot of red tape and stuff like that. And you're under a microscope too. So it should be a lot easier, folks. If we were making progress, that's the main point of this, is that we would see it. We would see it in people feeling more free, all people, not some people. With people feeling more liberated, people feeling more secure, people feeling more prosperous. And it would be a beautiful thing. That would be progress. That would us be coming into our glory, like a butterfly. It's this ugly little worm, and then it blossoms. That's what we would see in our society. And we're not seeing it. And it's foreboding because we know that there's really bad people with bad intentions. And if I cite the Georgia Guidestones. These people are malicious. And all this spraying, all these clouds today, okay, they're very suspect. They could all be unnatural clouds. If they are natural, wonderful. I have no problem. I'm not going to bitch and moan about them, okay? But if there's any, suspicion, and there always is, knowing they got these weather modification programs out there, and they're not even talking about it in the mainstream media, that is very suspicious. The mainstream media doesn't touch these things. Come on, mainstream media, talk about planned obsolescence. What do you got to say about that in regard to the environment? Talk about disruptive technology in regard to saving the planet and climate change and all this. Talk about these things. Talk about when you talk about the greenhouse effect, let's talk about chemtrailing and what that does, what the science behind that is. And if anything's melting the poles, what the hell that is, okay? You're full of crap, all you people, but I understand. Look, you're insecure, you're afraid. You got to serve your masters well, say what they want you to say, don't say anything they don't want you to say, and you need that paycheck because otherwise you're going to be homeless. So, suck it up, be a good little sycophant, get your paycheck, and, take humanity down this path they don't want to go, into genocide. Because that's where it leads. That's where we're at right now. They're committing genocide right under our noses with this abject poverty, all the homelessness, okay? That causes death, folks. That's a matter of fact. It's indisputable. I wanted to speak a second about intellectual versus intuitive disdain for evildoers. And you take a guy like Alex Jones that gets so upset and he rants and raves and all this. And I admire the passion, I really do. And I see a lot of that in me. And, mine is more from a gut level. It's not so much, his is more on an intellectual level as a historian. He's read a lot about, these people, their own writings, and I haven't. But I tell you, intuitively, I've known all my life that there is a huge evil entity. All these people are colluding against the welfare of humanity. Now, when you combine the intuitive with the intellectual, you become very powerful. And you don't even need to rant. You just need to state the facts clearly and concisely and be willing to rub elbows with these people, kind of like how Churchill said, stay close to your friends and even closer to your enemies. Bottom line, folks, in order to ever extricate ourselves from tyranny, we must first know, positively know, to understand how we are being tyrannized. And I think right now, still, a lot of people don't understand. It's all through monetary means. This is it. This is how they are screwing our heads and screwing up our lives. Okay, this is how they're taking freedom from us, taking security from us, taking prosperity from us. This is why so many people are sucking lemons, because they feel like they've lost hope. They're never going to get a piece of the pie because they're not being allowed to. Alex had Stefan Molyneux on the show recently, and he pointed something out that I thought was very, very succinct. And he just said, look, we've been inundated with a tidal wave of mis and disinformation. So it's no wonder none of us can think straight, that we're all walking around with these blind spots, that we really do have an obligation, a duty to point out to one another, even our best friends, family, whoever it is, and hope that they point them out to us, because, constructive criticism is a beautiful thing, but we've got to do it with tact, and that's the most important thing, is that we can reach people in a way that they're able to hear, to receive what we're trying to convey to them. Buying into the social Darwinian economic thing, I think, is hitting people below the belt. It's below their radar. They don't really see what's going on, but it's an inculcation type of thing where people, over and over, they think that somehow it's got to be good. It's got to be right that housing prices are going up. That's got to be good because, it's benefiting me, and that's what we should want. But, to me, that's blind. And it reminds me of the Jesus talking about the Tower of Siloam. If you look that up and you can read about it, do you suppose these people were worse sinners than the others? No, I'm telling you. But unless you repent, you shall all go the same way. Our minds and hearts have to be pure and clean. They have to be one with His. We have to be on the same page, see the same thing that our Father, our Creator, our parents, God Almighty sees, and He wants to convey to us. And we've got to understand that we've got to be not on some of the people's side, all of the people's side. So the only special interest group here that I'm talking about is humanity at large. It's the only way we could be on the same page with God, to see others as equals, because that is the way God sees them. They're equally beloved, and that's the greatest equality any of us can ever attain. I just briefly want to thank Jill Stein and the Green Party. It's not green. I don't think, I was a member of the Green Party. They're very intellectual people, very good people, and I don't think that they're any more obsessed about the climate just because they call themselves the Green Party. But you see the principles they stand for, and a lot of that stuff I totally agree with. And thank you all very much for the endorsement of Donald Trump. And remember what I told you, California is a guinea pig state, and the guinea pig is going to lead the way for the nation and the world if you don't put your foot down right now. And I believe honesty is a far more important value than education. Okay, because if you want true wisdom, it doesn't have anything to do with reading, writing, and arithmetic. What it has to do with is being a good, upright, decent human being with a conscience that values their conscience, that lives by the golden rule. That's the greatest thing anybody can possess, is that kind of knowledge. That's true education. All those that won, who's a candidate won, Donald Trump, Please be sensitive to all these protesters as best you can. Try to talk to them and reason with them and comfort and encourage them and let them know that why you still believe this. Defend your argument for the Trump values. The poverty, wanting to end the poverty and all this stuff. And I mean, we got to ask ourselves what Thomas Jefferson said. Dissent is the highest form of patriotism. So, will the real dissenter please stand up? Point out how they divide us between socialists and capitalists, and